Hi there and welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. I'm IceMan and today we're going to do a slightly different video than we've done previously. So today we're going to have a look at the slow double Maneater comp unkillable team for Clan Boss. So I know other people have done this and whatnot, but I wanted to do a slightly updated video and cover an area that may have actually been covered in other videos but wasn't highlighted quite enough, and it caused me a lot of stress recently, so I thought I'd put it out there, try and give some help to anybody else who's struggling with getting an unkillable done. Obviously this is one of the easier ones to do gear wise, not so much setup wise. An obvious shout out needs to go out to Deadwood Jedi for his website and his unkillable comps, and the author of this comp in particular, Zombie Lord. So, how does this work? Right, well, let's go take a look at the champion, shall we? Obviously, from the sounds of it, it's an unkillable team. And from what I've already said, it's a double Maneater unkillable team. So it's not the easiest to get, because obviously you've got to get 2 Void champions there. They are 2 Void epics at least, not Void legendaries. Teams can be run with this comp that involve no legendaries at all. So, in some ways, it's attainable and free to play friendly-ish. Certainly the most friendly part about it is the fact that the speeds are not as high as many other unkillable teams out there. So what are the essential champions for this? You guessed it, 2 Maneaters. So with these 2 Maneaters, you've got your first one, or in my case that's my second one actually. So your first one, if we go and have a look at his total stats, needs to be running at 218 speed. Not around, not one below, not one above. It needs to be very exact. That's the hardest part about this in many respects. And obviously if you make changes trying to get defenses up and stuff like that, or change out pieces of gear, you need to bear that in mind, that you need to keep this speed at this very specific speed. So what have we gone for build wise? Of course we've gone for crit rate, slightly over there. I'm not too happy with that. I'd like a bit dead on 100 obviously. A bit more crit damage would be nice, some more attack. I've actually recently lowered his attack stats because I've had to make a change. We're first going to cover my basic team that I have been running for quite a while now, and that is this Maneater obviously, this Maneater running at 215 speed, again very similar stats. I've also been running Valkyrie at 182 speed, and this is important, you do need a champ running at these speeds. I've then been running Frozen Banshee at 174 speed, and if I can find him, Razin at 178 speed. So all in all, this is the team. Obviously you want to build as much crit damage, crit rate, all that into your build as you can. We're going to take a look at the Masteries afterwards, because while it's an affinity boss, on the Void boss, I want to quickly show you this one, and then we can always come back afterwards before my clan gets him down. So this is the other team I run, but we'll explain that afterwards and why. Valkyrie and Razin. Right, so we're going to go in with this team. Now this is very important. As you go in, get ready to take it off auto, because Plarium, in all their wisdom, do not give you the option to set this to start on auto, off auto, which is what you need, because you do not want them running in, because if they run in on auto, one of these Maneaters is going to throw up an ability that you do not want them doing at that specific time. You need to be in control at this stage. It's the one thing that I find a major bugbear with this, and I really wish Plarium would please give us the option to start off of auto, or even just always start off of auto, because, you know, it's not that hard for people to just click auto, but it's a lot harder to get it back if you haven't done it. If it starts on auto, everything's going to auto. It's going to be a pain in the arse. If it starts off of auto, those who want it on auto can have it on auto. Those that don't are a lot safer and can get their keys in. The amount of keys I've wasted, in all honesty, I just wasted one just now because I was busy trying to talk to set up this video and I just missed the click on it. So I've had to waste 100 gems just to refresh so I could show you guys this. So basically, your first Maneater, you come in with the A2. Second Maneater, come in with the A2. Valkyrie, I'll put her shields up at this point, a counter attack. Razin, I'll go in for putting down decrease defense and weaken. Frozen Banshee, get a poison sensitivity out there. So here we are on turn count 1. Your fast Maneater second go. You want to put the unkillable and the block debuffs up on everybody. So that's the first time you use it. Then you come in, do your hits. Obviously this part is not on auto, it may worry you occasionally, but obviously I'm running with a counter attack. Now I'm not saying you have to use these exact champs, Valkyrie and Razin. This can actually be done with many different champs running at those speeds. So long as they're DPS, any other counter attacker will also work very well. In fact, you're maybe even better off running a different counter attacker, and I'll explain why at the end of this video, or at the end of this run, before we go on to the next one. So now we're just cycling through our A1s and whatever abilities you feel best, staying away from the unkillables up until turn 4. There is a bit of setup to do with this method, which at first glance is actually really daunting, but if you follow along on the Deadwood Jedi website, he has a thing. If you have that next to you reading through it, it will take you through step by step, or you can just have this video playing while you're doing it. Once you've done it a couple of times, you tend to actually memorize it quite easily. You'll notice, well, you really can't tell, but I'm not reading this, I'm just doing all of this from pure memory because I run it every day. So here we are on turn 4, don't get distracted. Our fast Maneater can do whatever he likes. Razin will put the decreased defense and weaken. I like, if you're running this same team, or very similar to this, I like to put up the decreased defense and weaken on the same turn when the counter attack's up, so that they're all going to be getting stronger hits on their A1s. So this is the slow Maneater on turn 4. You want to use his unkillable now. And then again we're cycling through, doing more of the same, and our next time we'll be using the unkillable will be round 7. On the fast Maneater's second turn, not first, and this is very important. That's the only problem with this, is there is a fair amount of setup. It can take a good few minutes, and it's very easy to get distracted and mess up. That's the only problem, and obviously when you do, you waste keys. Because if you do anything wrong here, it's not going to run full term. You've completely wasted it. Hence, if you mess up and you leave auto on at the start and take it off, you're messed up. You've wasted your key. Not entirely. I mean, you can run it on auto and you may get 10 million damage, but let's face it, that's not what you're here for. You're here for a proper decent key. I'd say you're still better off running it through rather than skipping it, because obviously if you skip it, you're going to lose all that damage that you're doing, and you've already spent the keys, so you might as well get most of the damage out of it. Turn 6. Right, so here we are on turn 7, but we're not doing it yet. This is his first go. Get that up again. And here we are on his second go. You see the turn meters right at the top here. Put the unkillable up. Our next unkillable will not come until turn 9, and it will be on the slow Maneater's second turn. Now obviously, depending on where you've put your positioning on the board, your slow Maneater might be swapped around, and you've just got to bear that in mind and watch who goes first right at the start to know which is which. Now, once you get to turn 7, you are fully unkillable, and the unkillable will always be up every time he hits you. Up until turn 7, you are not, and it's a risk. On this comp, with Valkyrie, it is much less of a risk. But you need enough survivability to basically get through to turn 7. Once you're at turn 7, you're sorted. You're fully unkillable at that point. It doesn't matter how low you are on health. In fact, you're almost better off being on low health if you set it up right. Right, now that looks worrying when you're on that one, but that stays right at full turn meter. Your slow Maneater gets his second turn, put the unkillable up, and that's all the auto setup done that you need to do. I usually auto manual a little bit further than this, just because I want to go through to Razin's turn and make sure that he does his decreased defense and weaken at that stage. Now I can hit auto, and this will run right up until turn 50 without fail. Now on my setup, with my build, the average score with this is sort of between 24 to 25 million a key. Depending on RNG, sometimes it can be a little bit lower, but not often much. Now, we might as well sit and talk this through now rather than later. This comp does also work on Nightmare, but for Nightmare, your slow Maneater needs to lose 8 speed and come down to 207. So you take, if you can get it right that you've got, say, 1 piece of speed gear, I mean, or however you've got it set up, but in my case, he's wearing full speed sets, and all I do is I take off 1 piece that has 8 speed. That then takes him down to the required speed. Well, I don't take it off, I replace it with a piece with no speed on it, but still from the speed set, because obviously I don't want to lose the bonus, because that reduces speed even more. The setup is exactly the same, more or less, except for the fact, so on turn 1 you do your fast Maneater unkillable, on turn 4 you do your slow. The difference is on the Nightmare version, on turn 6, on the second fast Maneater second turn, you do the unkillable, and turn 8. On the slow Maneater, you do turn 8. So, sorry, I said that a bit wrong. So basically, the fast Maneater will do turn 6 on his second turn. On his second turn, on turn 8, the slow Maneater will do his turn. So basically, the difference is on Nightmare, it's turns 1, 4, 6, and 8. On Ultra Nightmare, it's 1, 4, 7, and 9. And that's how to remember it. Now, it is a great comp. I've been running this for absolutely ages. I've recently joined a new guild though, Rat 2 Furriest, part of the Rat's Nest cluster. brilliant group of chaps, really supportive, really helpful. Feel free to apply for membership. They're always looking for good people, and they have guilds that suit just about everybody. And like I say, brilliant group of chaps. You can't want it for any better. Now, the reason I bring this up is my previous clan that was had been dying for a long time, and there was only a couple of us actually hitting Ultra Nightmare. So because of that, I was only ever hitting the Ultra Nightmare boss on Void. And so this comp worked for me every single time without fail, unless I messed it up. Where I ran into issues was when I joined this cluster, obviously they're downing Ultra Nightmare in the guild I'm in every day. And when it goes to the Affinity boss, it was messing me up, something rotten, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I checked all the Masteries, nobody had or steel or anything like that. Nobody had any turn meter manipulation Masteries. I could not figure out for the life of me where I was going wrong. And then it finally twigged. It's Valkyrie. Valkyrie, while being an absolutely brilliant champion for this, only works on Void Affinity. If you go over to the Affinity boss, he puts up buffs. The second he does that, she starts affecting turn meter, so you can't use her anymore. And this is why I've had to rebuild my team, play around with it, have some fun and games, and come up with a new team that would work, because she basically kept throwing the turn meter out. Now, this is the important part to pay attention to. This team with Valkyrie works great on Void, will not work on any Affinity boss. If you're using a different champion that has no turn meter effect whatsoever in place of Valkyrie, this team will work for you without fail, without having to change around to other champions, so long as you've got the survivability to get to round 7. Now, we're going to cut at this point, and I'll bring you back in at the end, and I'll show you the damage we got. And then afterwards, we're going to show you the other team I run for the that I've started running all the time, to be fair, to replace this one. The main reason I wanted to show you this one is because if anybody tries the same thing, they might get stuck and not be able to work out what's going wrong. And I wanted to let them know that Valkyrie's the reason. As brilliant as she is, as amazing as she is, in this, she's only great on Void. Anyway, we'll be back in a minute, and we'll cover the next part of the video. Right, and we are back. So, we've come in at 30.47 million damage. Well, actually, that's better than what I was expecting, to be honest, and better than what I do most of the time. Obviously, it's respectable 3-key Ultra Nightmare, and that's, you know, where I'm at with this. And obviously, if you get better champions, Vizier, Draconomorph, people like that, throw them in there, you are going to get better results. But, you know, it just goes to show you can still get a good steady 3-key on Ultra Nightmare relatively easily. Obviously, the setup's a bit awkward. It's not too bad, you've just got to pay attention. And the hardest part, to be honest, is making sure you click off that auto at the start. So we're going to go take a quick look at the Masteries we've gone for, so you know what to do, what to avoid. Right, we'll do Razin, it'll be fine. So we've gone for a fairly sort of semi-normal clan boss build. We're staying away from the support tree with its turn meter manipulation and whatnot, and we basically come down the defense tree. So you've got defense, reduced damage from AoE, 50% to remove a random debuff. That bit's not so important, it really just brings you down. Reduce the damage this champion receives from a specific enemy. That can actually really help. And then down into Retribution has a 50% chance to counter attack when the champion loses 25% of their max HP or more from a single enemy skill. Obviously this can give you more hits and therefore more damage. Now the important thing to note here is, because we're doing an unkillable team, obviously you'd usually go across here and take Heart of Glory, but this is for attacking with full HP. With the unkillable, you're going to spend most of the fight at below 50% HP. So you go for Grim Resolve instead, increased damage inflicted by 5% when attacking with 50% HP or less. Is a lot more effective in this scenario. Obviously this I've gone just for the first hit on each enemy. It's not a huge deal. I could have gone for Life Drinker to keep him up, but because he's a rather defensive champion, and when I use him, it's usually with Valkyrie anyway, on Void Boss, I don't have any problem keeping him alive, so it's not so necessary on him. But for many of you, taking Soul Drinker and keep going for the getting back health will actually be a lot more usable than this. And then obviously you can come down here and do your usual sort of into War Master or into Giant Slayer, depending on the champion you're using. But you notice we're staying away from anything that manipulates turn meter, and that's the way you want to be doing it. So let's have a look at the other team I've built, shall we? So as I said, I've basically found that using Valkyrie for this is not optimal. If you're using anyone other than Valkyrie, you can happily use this method as long as you've got the survivability to get to turn 7 on any affinity boss. Your damage will fluctuate obviously based on the champions you're using and whether or not they're strong or weak and whatnot, but it's still going to be usable and will work on any affinity if Valkyrie is not in the team. If Valkyrie's in the team, you can only do it on Void. Bear this in mind. Remember it, it's very important. Like I say, it took me a lot of stressing and trying to figure out what was going wrong with my team before I finally did. So when I did, what did I do? Well, I decided to try running a bit of a different comp, so I've gone with Fane, who, again, very similar Masteries, very standard War Master build. Obviously, she's got Life Drink to get that health back. She's a very hard person to build, I have to say. If we look at her gear, I did have her in Full Savage and crit damage set, but the problem with it was I don't have a crit damage piece in Defense Chest, and I needed these defensive stats to keep her alive through to turn 7, which is really hard. As you can see, she's got a really low base defense. I wish they would have upped that, or I wish they would still. It'd make her a lot more usable in Clan Boss for everybody. At the moment, she's really only usable in unkillable teams, and even then getting her to last till turn 7 on this setup can be really difficult. So, again, I was using crit damage neck, which I still am, but only because when I swapped in defense, it wasn't quite high enough to make a big enough difference. But I've swapped out the attack ring I was using, and I've gone for a defensive ring. And what we're changing up, originally I did have her because obviously I want a high accuracy high enough to land her debuffs and to land her poisons. Well, her poisons, decreased defense and weakened. She's a brilliant champ for this. You know, she's got, this does nothing, although apparently it's bugged at the moment, so when she's hitting 2 times you can proc War Master on both hits, which is great. Sooner or later they'll probably take that off, but at the moment it works. She can land 2 poisons, which is great. Now if you've got a Vizier is absolutely amazing with this champion, because you can take the likes of Frozen Banshee out, just use her as your poisoner, and you will fill that poison bar still, and you can bring in somebody else that's going to do more damage without poison, without filling up the bar, because she'll do it anyway, and Vizier will just keep it stacked up. Now, I don't have a Vizier, so I went for the next best thing that I've got. I've got a Warlord and I've got a Septimus, but Warlord I use in the arena. I didn't want to mess his gear up for using him in Clan Boss. So Septimus I used to use for this role anyway. So what I've done is I've got him to 182. So he's my Valkyrie replacement. So he's at the same speed as her. And Fane is my Razim replacement. No, wrong one. And she's got her speed at 178 to match Razim's. The handy thing about that is I've got 2 decreased defense and weakened champions on 2 different affinities. So if the boss is green or red, I'll use Fane, because then she's either neutral or strong. If the boss is blue, I'll use Razin in place of her, and then he's strong and they're going to be hitting strong. So I can swap them out dependent on what affinity boss you hit, which is great. Now, we're going to show you that one in just a second. So obviously, I did explain why we're doing it that way. I did explain how you do the Nightmare version. I'm not going to show you the Nightmare version. As I say, it is basically just the second 2 turns are back 1. So it's turn 6 and 8 for Nightmare, 7 and 9 for Ultra Nightmare. We're swapping 1 piece of gear. That's really handy. The handy thing with this comp is I actually found that I get more damage out of it than I do with my Valkyrie comp anyway. I've had my personal best at 33 million. And I tend to average 33 to 34 million. Sorry, did I get 34 earlier? I can't remember. But around sort of 33 is quite standard with this comp, which is good, so long as you can pull it off. I am very, very low on health on a couple of characters by round 7. I would like to increase their defensiveness and whatnot a little bit higher, just to make that a little bit safer and less chance that if he gets that little bit extra damage, I'm going to die and fail, and obviously you lose a champion, it don't work. In all honesty, I lost Fane on a run, I think it was yesterday, and luckily the run still carried on without her, but obviously I ended up losing a lot of damage and only came in at about a 20 million key. Right, anyway, we're going to showcase the other one. Okay, so let's take them in and we'll show you this other team. Unfortunately, we're not on an affinity boss yet, because I would like to have shown that off, although depending on which one we get, might have messed up who I need to bring in anyway. So now we're going to show you the other team I'm running instead of those, and it is Septimus and Fane. I've already showed you their speeds. The setup for this is exactly the same as in the first one. All we've done is change 2 champions. Only one. A2 even. A2. Not that you have to do that. You can do the A1s there if you want. I just personally prefer doing it that way. I'll go in with his A1 at this point. Let's get those poisons up earlier. And the decrease attack, which will help. Right, so now we want our unkillable. You want to fast forward this bit, skip forwards and cut this. Okay, and we're back. So we've come in at 33.56 million, which is what I said is fairly standard for me with this comp. Obviously I want to push it up higher and do even better, and I'm sure I can do as I improve the skills. As I improve the gear on some of these champs and lose some of the poor substats that I don't need and swap them out for ones I do need, and basically do some fine tuning, you will see an increase, I think. Obviously if I can get myself a Vizier at some point and bring him in place of Septimus, I would then probably look at bringing in somebody else who does more damage than Frozen Banshee, because Fane would quite frankly keep up enough poisons on her own at that stage. I don't have a Seeker, unfortunately. I would like to trial whether or not Gorgrab can be used in place of a Seeker, or whether or not he'd throw it out too much, because obviously Seeker increases turn meter, so does Gorgrab, I think. But you know, anyway, the main point of this video was to show you a couple of different options for champions you could use for the double slow Maneater, which I've done, and obviously I've pointed out the pitfalls that you have to watch out for with using Valkyrie. and these are champions you can use instead of. And as I say, the handy thing about having a couple of different champions on a couple of different affinities built up that do a lot of the same stuff is, depending on the affinity of the boss, you can then swap them in and do more damage that way if you've already got them built out. It depends where else you're using them and whether or not you've got spare champions to do that with and the gear to do it, but it's an option. So anyway, that's the slow double Maneater and the pitfalls to watch out for. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more of my content, please hit that subscribe button, and you'll get notified next time I post a video. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.